how music is actually generated. At their best, they can generate deeply moving harmonies and melodies, but at their worst, they can feel sort of like a waste of time. As musicians who play the guitar, we should always be seeking the former. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today we will do a deep dive into scale sequencing. Now, chords come from scales, melodies come from scales, yet as guitarists, we can often see scales as just something to practice without any vision of how it's going to make us a better player or musician. Today we're going to revisit the concept of scale sequencing, and not just through learning a couple of sequences that we may just shelve after a while, but really diving into the methodology, how to sequence scales, because that's a skill that we can use for the rest of our journey as guitarists. You're watching this video because you're looking for a little insight into how this thing works. How can I play this instrument and not feel lost all the time? I do this with guitar players all the time. I do it in my online guitar academy called The Studio. The Studio is an online learning platform that combines community features with educational content into a cohesive learning platform. There are free lessons, free courses there. You can also register for live events and hang out with a bunch of other curious guitarists. Now, I know an online guitar academy might not be for everyone, so I'm running a 7-day free trial. That gives you enough time to take a look at it, see if the fit is right for you. You can dive in there, take a few lessons, maybe even finish a course or two, and decide if it feels right for you. And if you do decide to study with me, I look forward to working with you. Scale sequencing is a simple idea, but it has very powerful ramifications. When we zoom in, I'm going to show you the components of how to sequence a scale, rather than just show you a couple of sequences that fix everything. Because understanding the method of scale sequencing is the real gold. That gives us a skill we can use for the rest of our journey, rather than just a sequence we may learn and then forget. So let's zoom in, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so the way sequencing works is we simply design a sequence of notes, and then we also have to figure out how we're going to deploy that sequence. So there are really two parts. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We're going to take the G major scale. That's a 2-octave G major scale. That's the fabric we're going to use to design a sequence and then deploy it. So the first part we want to do is design the sequence. I'm going to take 4 notes in a row. In other words, 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the scale, ascending. So that's the sequence. Just 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, in order to deploy it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it on ascending notes in the scale. In other words, start it here, play 4 notes. Start it here, play 4 notes. Same here, same here, same here, all the way through the scale, until I get back to the root again, right? So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to start here on the root, play the 4 notes. Right now I'm going to deploy it from the 2nd note on the scale, then the 3rd note, 4th note, 5th note, 6th. Right, there's all my 4-note sequences deployed ascending through the scale. Now what I'm going to do is stitch them all together so that there are no spaces in between them. Every single note in all of the deployed sequences has the same note value. That sounds like this. They all fit together, and my hands are starting to sort of program the sequence. They're synchronizing to the sequence in that specific deployment. Now I want to highlight the difference between the sequence and the deployment a little bit more in a little bit more focused way. I'm going to use the same sequence, an ascending sequence of 4 notes, but I'm going to deploy it descending the scale. So I have to start on this note so that an ascending sequence ends on the root. Watch this. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I'm going to start this sequence, that same sequence, the ascending sequence. I'm going to start it here, then here, then here. Right? Ascending sequence, same sequence, different deployment. I'm descending the scale. That's the difference between the actual sequence and the deployment of the sequence. So let me just show you that again, and we're going to just twist it up a little bit. We're going to change the sequence now to be a descending 4-note sequence, right? So we're going to descend. So now the sequence goes like this. Right? I'm 4 note sequence descending. And now I'm going to deploy it up through the scale. Right? 4-note sequence descending, ascending through the scale as the deployment. Now I'm going to do that same descending sequence, and I'm going to deploy it descending through the scale. Now some of these turn out to be easier than others, and what happens is as you deploy new sequences in different ways, your hands start to solve this problem. They have to synchronize through a new deployment of a unique sequence, and that's where the real gold is. You get your fingers moving in different ways, and through the discipline of controlling the sequence and the deployment, you get all the gold out of any single sequence that you design. Well, there you have it. Be a sequencer rather than someone who can play a sequence. There's a big difference there. You want to resist looking for sequences to learn and really dive in and focus on the act of sequencing. Build your own sequences, right? You'll quickly find out that the sequences that you come up with have probably already been done before. I mean, this has been going on for hundreds of years before you and I even picked this thing up. But there's a deeper learning experience when you take on a methodology rather than just the result. And the insight and capability you get from that act, you can't get anywhere else. Tabs for this lesson are available on my Patreon page. That's always linked in the description below. There's also a link to the studio, as I mentioned before. If you're ready to really tackle how this thing works and you'd like to try it with me, check out the studio. That link's down there as well. I hope you found this lesson valuable. I hope you found it interesting. Above everything else, stay curious. I'll see you next time.